and welcome to the KOFISI Connect podcast, your source for a wealth of roundtable discussions in the workplace and business, as well as cultural news and trends from the diverse and dynamic continent of Africa. I'm your host, Patience Musyoka, and I'm joined by Masindego, who's the Public Policy Director, Eastern Horn of Africa at META, and Faith Muricho, who's the Technical Operations Manager at Amazon Web Services. So, karibuni sana, and I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Asante sana, Patience, and thank you also to KOFISI for having us. And to the audience on KOFISI Connect, my name is Masindego. I'm really excited to be here to share with you about me, a little bit about me, I guess. I was just chatting earlier saying that I have always listened to podcasts. I love podcasts, and this is my first time being on one. So you're privileged to be hearing this for the first time, and so hopefully you'll indulge me. But I am a woman who's very passionate about tech and have only worked in the tech space, actually. So that's where I am. I love digital, and digital is everything I want to continue being part of. So I'd say in a nutshell, that's who I am. But besides that, a mom of 3 preteens and 1 teen who also keep me busy. So I have quite a busy life between those two, family and friends and all that things that I have to handle. Yeah.
Amazing.
All right. Thank you. My name is Faith. I look after support engineering at AWS. We just launched the other day, so still new in the market. I'm excited to be here. My first time to do a podcast. I have built a career behind a screen, so this is way out of my comfort zone. So if I stutter, we can understand where that is coming from. Other than that, I'm very passionate about what we'll be discussing today, women in technology, and just the spaces where we can, on how we can influence to have more ladies in that space. I'm a mother. I have a teenager and 2 preteens, twin boys. Keep me really, really busy. Yeah. So in between working for a high performing organization and my children, I think I'm pretty busy. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just start right in. So on historical impact and amplifying just female innovators, we can start with a little bit of history. So from women from Ada Lovelace and to today's innovators who've played a crucial role in shaping technology, in your roles, in your respective companies, how do you think we can amplify their impact, and how can we create more opportunities for the next generation of, upcoming female pioneers? I'll start with Matthew.
So I think that, yes, a lot of women have been in the tech space for a long time, and I think not enough stories are told about them. You had mention of Ada Lovelace, there are many others, Katherine Johnson. In Africa, we have tons, and there's just so many that we don't get to know about. And I think what you're doing here is one of the ways in which this can be amplified, telling more stories of women who are in tech that can then become inspirational stories to younger girls who would be thinking about getting into tech, I think is really important. I think it's also important to have, building a talent pipeline from a younger age. I see I do a lot of mentorship, and I find that when I speak to my mentees who tend to be young, because I like to speak to them when they're younger and they have not figured out what careers they want to get into, and speak to them about tech, they really get lit up and excited, and a lot of times they haven't heard about it or are not clear that this is actually even a thing you can do as a career. And I find that us inculcating the ideas into younger, girls and within environments that we're in, mentoring each other, helps also to just get the stories amplified and even to get more people aware about tech. I think it's also important to just have very deliberate actions being taken also from, authorities that are in place. For example, just inculcating tech or STEM courses, as we say, science, technology, math, all these things that lead up to science courses or tech-related careers within curriculums, so that those are there. And thankfully now, with many tech companies in place, you find that there is a lot of free courses that one can access online. I think getting just more people being able to access those would help also to amplify the interest or even awareness around what tech is about and get more people involved. So I'd say that those are some of the ways, but I'm sure that Faith would have even many more ideas on the same.
Yeah, I think we don't tell enough stories about women in tech. I think we don't put it out there. And there are so many women in technology right now, and especially the age we are living in. And we need to just find spaces to amplify that, like tell those stories so that, and they are relatable stories, because if someone hears, oh, I come from this village and I managed to get an opportunity to participate in the tech environment, and I've been tech in that all my life, it influences, it encourages someone else. They're not looking at, oh, I come from this place, I may not have access to resources and all that. But yeah, other than that, I think we live in a very different time. I think for just probably judging by where we are, Mercy and I think when we went to school, tech was very far. It was really, really far. And especially big tech. It was very far from us. But now we live in a space where the ground is leveled. There is internet availability everywhere. These courses are available to everyone. The same courses that are available to a kid in the US is the same course available to a kid in Africa. And so while we amplify the stories of the women who are currently in tech, who are doing well in tech, I think we also need to just make sure that we talk about the available opportunities, the courses that we can take. And some of them you can take them at the comfort of your house. All you need is the internet. And now we have smartphones, we have internet everywhere. I think also the government has done a very good job of just making sure that we have internet availability everywhere across the nation. So putting it out there, some of the things that, opportunities that are available, the courses available for self-paced, most of them. I don't think we need to learn everything in a class setting. I think there are things you can teach yourself from home. And we can start as early as whichever age. If a kid knows how to use a phone, they can teach themselves how to code. So we can start these conversations way, way early.
Okay. And if I could add something, actually, Patience, from what I've, a thread that I've had from Faith about back in the day when we were getting started, we also didn't know much about tech. But when I think about the opportunities today, to the point she's made, there is a lot more access now. People have access to internet, but still we are still far behind. When you think about your village, wherever you're from, my village, I come from Nyahururu. There is a lot of people still who do not have smartphones. They cannot even access good, stable internet. And I think I find that there is a lot of efforts being put by private sector, but also by government to roll out internet and get more people connected. And so you find that there is sometimes assumptions that we make for us who have access or have had access longer than those who are starting now to get access, to assume that everybody is well versed or knows how to get around tech itself, Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the things I want to encourage your audience, the people who will be listening to this podcast, is to think about how can they themselves also share stories and lend a hand in helping those who are just getting started with the internet to learn and pick up skills. And I think that is one of the ways we could support and get more women, more girls interested in tech by helping them to ramp up faster and catch up with what they could do with tech. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And on just to touch on that point of innovation, I know both your companies have been at the forefront of technological innovation globally. And Faith, for you, Amazon is a powerhouse in AI, that is artificial intelligence and machine learning. How are women in your organization contributing to advancements in this field?
I'd like to talk about what we do internally at AWS, and especially for women. But the one thing that I've seen, and this is probably a misconception, because when you're outside the big tech, you don't realize how intentional some of these companies are when they're hiring. But now that I'm an insider in big tech, I see how intentional big tech is when they're hiring, filling positions, and just making sure that there's that gender gap is covered. And we intentionally go out and hire and say we want to hire more women. And even when we are interviewing, we actually want to hire more women. There's a lot of intentionality in creating those spaces and supporting women. There's a lot of conversations happening around, do we have gender coverage here? Do we have gender coverage across the different services, the different spaces, and spaces like AI and ML? And we see a lot of young girls coming up and playing on the level field, because it's level ground now for everyone. Opportunities are out there, the knowledge is out there. You just need to go, step out and learn for yourself. So I see a lot of big tech really being intentional about this. I'm not sure about our local companies, but Yeah, if we would borrow a leaf from big tech, like be intentional. Be intentional when you're bringing in your employees, because that's where it starts. Be intentional about making sure that those are opportunities available as well to women, and encourage more women to apply. And for that, I think it will help us cover the gaps. And probably, I don't know if I should mention this, one of the things I'm passionate about is just to try and encourage girls to show up in tech spaces. And the girls I talk to, sometimes I'm told, because you've been around for long, Faith, so you've shattered the ceiling, so you forget how it used to feel. But the girls I talk to, I can hear the fear and the way we disqualify ourselves, not to even step there. Like someone would see an opportunity and say, nah, not for me. Go out there, try. We're just chatting earlier and I was saying, when a gentleman looks at a job description and they see 3 out of 10 requirements, they meet only 3, trust me, they will go ahead and apply. When a lady sees it, they'll be like, I only qualify for 3, so I can't apply for this job. I don't qualify. I'm here to challenge you that go ahead and apply. The gap that you have, this is your opportunity to cover the gap, because how else will you learn? Where else will you learn? So I see a lot of, because it's not happening in a class setting. Because in school, the percentages are 50-50. And when you walk around in TVETs, not necessarily TVETs, but even schools, you'll see the engagement is 50-50. We are bringing in, girls are showing up in computer science classes, in tech classes, just similar number to the boys. But then, are we making the same transition to workplace? Something is dropping somewhere. But speaking to the girls I speak to, I see a lot of, we disqualify ourselves and tell ourselves we are not fit for the role before we even apply. And yet some of these companies have become very, very intentional in bringing girls on board and putting measures in place and support in place to make sure that the girls also advance.
Yeah, you've already gone ahead of me. We were touch on just promoting diversity and inclusion, and I love it. No, it's okay. Because we were having the same conversation before you walked in, Mercy, and we had it in the same the other day when I was just approaching you, Faith, on the transition bit, like 50-50, like you say in class, but it doesn't translate to the same numbers when you get to the office. So it's the same thing for you, Mercy, at META, or is it a completely different conversation?
So I'd like to draw, I think, my insights here from my experience across, like I said, I've worked in tech all my life, literally, like all of my working life has been in the tech space, which I'm really proud of. And drawing from all of those companies where I've worked, so not just drawing the insights from META, I'd say, I've worked in Safaricom, I've worked in other places as well. One of the things that I absolutely agree with Faith's point, that being very deliberate and intentional in how you hire, so that you're making room for a very diverse set of skills, diverse cultures, diverse gender, diverse everything, is really important. And that's one way of making sure that you're creating space for that, for even women in tech spaces and tech careers. But I think another one is also, once they're on board, how do you ensure that you're continuing to handhold them to do well and to succeed and to level up now across leadership levels? And that requires a lot of mentoring, a lot of coaching that has to also be very intentionally designed within the organization to support those who are coming in from the younger, whatever levels people are coming in, or even if they're just new in terms of, they could be coming into leadership straight, but then they're new to an environment. So for example, you're working maybe in a local organization and then you move into a global organization that is new to you in terms of, global aspects and all that. Just getting your hand held and supported is really helpful to leveling up faster and even ramping up faster and getting better at what you need to do to go into higher levels or to diversify your career within the organization. So coaching and mentorship is another. But I think a third one I would say is ensuring that there is a lot of community support. I find that, and that is one of the things that I'm excited about working in a social media organization, that we are very passionate about building communities. That is what the social media networks we are in are all about, making sure that we build communities. Our own mission of the organization is to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. And so in that same spirit, you find that it is translated also within the organization, where you have community groups that are meant to address specific interests. So for example, there will be groups that are of Christians who gather together who have the same belief and want to gather together to pray together and do other things. Similarly, there are many other groups that will include women groups. For example, there could be just women who chat about women issues, who speak about their challenges as women or striking balances between their work life and life balance. There will be groups that are addressing specific issues to do with, say, parents, because not all women also are necessarily parents. There could be, so that there's different community groups that you can have. So I think that thing of having community is also really important to harness and bring together that collective sharing of experiences and support and information to just help everyone do better. And I think that those are some of the things I've seen consistently across the companies I've worked for, being some of the things that are being implemented and have worked very well in supporting not just myself to ramp up quickly in the career. I don't have a tech background, by the way. Unlike you, Faith, and I think it's beautiful, but I've seen that the space for women in tech is not necessarily just from being from a tech background. There's a lot more things that one can do within the tech space, as I am already doing for now 20 years. And I think through those kinds of things that I'm saying, there is a lot of that that can be harnessed to bring more women on board. Yeah.
What's your background now that you said you didn't do tech?
Interestingly, I actually trained as a teacher. My first degree was as a teacher. I did a
Really?
Bachelor of Education, a degree, which I'm super proud of, because I find that is even those are the skills that I'm using the most in my role, because my job involves engaging with different stakeholders every single day. I'm in the public policy space. I'm constantly trying to negotiate positions, to shape public policies around ICTs. I'm constantly having to train people. I'm constantly having to think about how we run programs and things like that. I'm constantly in front of people, and those skills from teaching really helped me to do that. But over and above that, I went ahead to do accounting at Strathmore. I went ahead to study many other things. I did a master's in something different, and I continue to ramp up. I'm always learning. I'm trying to learn and improve myself, and that's also one of the other ways I'd say I'm keeping alive to being relevant within the tech space. Yeah.
Lifelong learning. Amazing. And is that the same thing with you, Faith, at at Amazon, in relation to the skills women need to succeed in your kind of field?
Yeah, so I come from a tech background. I've been in computer science through and through, which is a very funny story on how I landed there, but yeah. So I've worked in tech space through and through, and I've always, again, I said I've built a career behind a screen. Yeah, I've always been behind a screen. So what I've seen is, I should say, companies being intentional about holding the hands of the young girls. I think one of the things I can attribute to my success is I've always had a mentor, let me put it like that, someone who was there to hold my hand and someone who actually understood what my capabilities were. Even when I was busy disqualifying myself, there were people around me who believed I could do more than how I was showing up. And so when I finally got to a space where I finally understood, okay, so I can actually bring myself to the table with my unique capabilities. I can bring myself to the table and do a little more, do more than what I've been asked to do. I started realizing when I apply myself with the skills I have and just who I am as a person, my abilities and my giftings, I'm showing up in a very different way. And I'm showing up in that space, not necessarily like someone else, like a man. No, I show up as a woman, and that brings a lot of difference on the table. And so with that, it helped me to just remind myself, this is what I'm good at. I can do this, and I keep showing up. And so one thing I have seen at Amazon, I think we do very well, I think, is when you come in, after you've ramped up and you've understood what the organization does, everyone is asked to get a mentor. Like, reach out and look for a mentor. And specifically, it's even put as one of your deliverables, do you actually have a mentor? And so while you may be probably holding back and thinking, maybe not, maybe I may not be good enough, maybe you're actually asked to go out and get a mentor. And when you can't, your manager helps you to get a mentor. And we do that for every single person who comes in, includes, we don't look at gender per se. It's just like, you've come in, this is your role, this is what you're bringing to the table, we'll give you a mentor. And we give you a mentor, and someone who walks the journey with you, helps you to understand the services, helps you to understand the culture of the company, helps you to understand how do you basically help you unlock the potentials within you. And that helps. But the other thing I have seen is something Mercy mentioned, is just keep learning, keep reinventing yourself. You're never too old to learn a new thing. And I think one of the things that works very well is to remind yourself that it's good to always stay a student. Don't ever get to a point where you decide, you know what, I think I've done enough. No, the moment you get there, right there, that's the problem. stay a student. Stay humble enough. Always know you can learn from anyone. You can learn from those who are just coming in, the younger ones. You can learn from those people who've been there before. You can always learn something from someone. So have a mindset that allows you, in Amazon we call it learn and be curious. And it's one of our biggest leadership principles that we put out there and tell throughout your life in Amazon, you'll actually always be learning something. And so what that has done for me is after I did an undergraduate degree in computer science, I kind of took a bit of a break because I was busy working and busy being a mother. Yeah. Then I went back, did an MBA, which was totally new space for me because I was purely I was a science student. I've been a science student through and through. So doing an MBA was quite a stretch for me. And it took me quite a while to finally get that master's over the line. But then I've gone back. I'm currently pursuing an MSc. But then one of the things I'm challenging myself is to just ask myself, what other skills are out there? So internally, we have all these courses about AI and machine learning. And I've challenged myself to go back and start learning what exactly is AI, how the model's being built and all that. And stay learning. That's the thing. Stay learning. You're never too old for that. Yeah.
All right, let's discuss challenges and how you overcome them. Both of you as women in the tech leadership area, I'm so sure you've just faced challenges, not just one. Can you share maybe some experiences and how you overcome them as well? Marcy, you can start. Especially the career ladder.
Yeah, so I would start with, I talked about my background and then I'm in tech space. So you can imagine my very obvious challenge was understanding this tech. I was not from a background that was tech-wise. Like in terms of from an education perspective. And so I joined an organization that is a tech company, but I was joining it in the finance department to do accounting, because like I said, I studied accounting in Strathmore. And so, I do that and I pick a lot of interest from watching what's happening around me, and I'm like, I'm interested in understanding more about this tech thing. What exactly is going on? Because of course, when you're working for a company, you have the proximity of information from your colleagues, and you make friends with them, and you hang out, and you listen, and you realize this thing is actually quite interesting. And it was then, at that time, it was sort of like, I'd say like at the early days of the internet penetrating more in even the cities. We didn't have much then. It was way back. I'm talking about like early 2000s. We didn't really have, I was fresh out of university, landed this first job. It's in a tech company. The company was called Swift Global. And it was selling list lines, and it was well ahead of its time. Dial-ups, these things now sound really old for now, but then they were quite a thing. It was how internet was being accessed then, and it still is in most places. So I gave myself the challenge of just starting to be curious about understanding tech. Thankfully, I was at the advent of it, so a lot of people were learning with me, so I wasn't the only one. It helped. So that was one of the things. But like Faith was saying, I've kept doing that. I am taking, right now as we speak, as I'm sitting here, I'm taking a course in data science, again, to make sure that I deepen my understanding around AI and machine learning, because it's really the next frontier of everything big that you can think about in tech. And that's the beauty of tech. It doesn't stay the same. And so that being now, I'd say the second challenge, it is so dynamic and diverse. You finish learning this one thing, it's no longer the thing anymore. You've moved on to a new thing. And so you have, one of the things that says is very regular is you have to constantly, like she said, keep learning, and that's what the tech space is about. And that is also what makes it really exciting. For me, I get bored with the same thing. And you can imagine I chose accounting of all things. So I'm sitting on accounting desk, and every single month we had a mid-month cycle, and then we'd move to end-month cycle within 2 weeks. And it was a play repeat, and you do that every month. It was killing me, and I realized I cannot do this. I need to shift. And that's how I started to lean into now courses that were steering me out of accounting into something that made me more relevant in that tech space that I needed to be part of, but without losing who I was and the things that I had worked so hard already to achieve up at that point. And so I moved into policy just like that. In fact, my MBA was in international business management. The idea was to get into understanding how do businesses work beyond a country, like just across borders. This is what the interest I had then. And then now I realized, pair that with technology, which already makes our world a global village. It just felt like the perfect fit. And so for me, marrying those two, it became quite an easy fit to now start sliding into this space where I'm at, where I realized that even within tech, to get that understanding of how do this cross these borders when it comes to laws, regulations, policies, and so on, was a space that was by itself a niche that wasn't quite explored. And that is how I got into that space. And I have since become the tech policy expert because of building my capacity within it. So I'd say some of those are the challenges, just figuring out and staying woke. And again, leaning into people who have been there for a lot longer. I try as much as possible to lean back also to pay it forward to others and just offer mentorship. I'm constantly mentoring. I'm constantly linking up with other women who are in tech to, again, support, because there's many women who are getting into tech, especially like in tech policy, who are challenged with how do I get into a room, which is, again, the challenges. You're talking about challenges full of men, which typically is the case when you're speaking about, say, dealing with governments when it comes to policy. Policies are written by government, public policies. And so you get into rooms where you're meeting with most likely men who will, or by the minute you walk in, there's probably some bias about, would she even really know what these matters are about? All of these are different challenges that I face every single day. But again, me coming ready into a room is one of the ways I overcome that. I'm already aware of what perceptions there could be, what biases there might be, what gaps there are. And then also I'm very clear about the strengths I'm coming with. I'm working for good organizations where resources are vast, and I prepare myself. I will sit with people who have had similar challenges to the ones I'm dealing with in the region that I'm dealing with to already prepare for this meeting. So when I come into the room, I'm not coming to do guesswork. I am coming very clear about the things that I'm tabling, positions that I want to. And so the joy for me is seeing those people who either had advanced positions from mine or agnostic about whether this person really can, turning around and being on your side, and you end up in a consensus. And that for me is what I feel is a win in my job. And so challenges like those are regular. But I don't know that there is anything that doesn't have challenges. I feel like challenges are good opportunities for people to pick lessons and learn and to just continue growing that muscle. If you think about on a typical day, you're walking on the road, there's probably a pothole, there's probably a car that is passing, you want to cross the road, you have to wait. There's many things that are, bumps on the road while you're on your way on it, that you figure out how to cross roads, you figure out how to maneuver around potholes on roads that you're on every day. It's the same when it comes to work. It's the same when it comes to tech. It's just staying, again, very clued in, like Faith was saying, into what is happening. How do you keep yourself informed? How do you lean into a lot of these spaces that are so free today? You have lots of courses that are free online. You have lots of events that you just need to walk into. You find that there's something happening at KCC. What stops you from walking in and finding out what is this tech event about? Sit in the audience and listen. Those kinds of things. A lot of things are free. Educating yourself and putting yourself out there at some of the ways in which you make an edge over some of the challenges or barriers that could be holding you back. And I think for me, especially me, I came from a very humble background, with a village background, actually from the village. And say village background, who are from the village probably relate more to this. And you're coming into a big city like Nairobi. That in itself was a challenge. That's how do you maneuver this city? How do you even become one of those people who matter to anyone, and not just somebody on the wayside? And it is those things of just staying woke, keeping yourself aware, leaning in, sitting into the right networks. Don't waste time with things that don't matter, people that are not matter in that way. Like just invest your time, be intentional about how you're journeying towards the goals that you wish for, and you'll find that those challenges become just but bumps on the way, but you keep moving, and that is what's most important. So I'd say take the lessons and face the challenges, but the challenges are for everyone in everything, not just tech. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow.
I like how Mercy has covered it.
Everything.
And it's basically exactly that. The challenges are everywhere. But one of the things I've seen with women, I'm one, so I know, 90% of the conversations are up here in our heads. 90% of the opportunities that we hold ourselves back from. The conversation is happening. No one has closed the door. Most of the time we've decided we are not walking through that door. And we have very valid reasons for not walking through that door. We justify. We are able to justify. And Mercy, I was telling you earlier how I was asked to interview for a certain role. And just looking at the title, I was like, no way I'm interviewing for that role. I was busy arguing with a recruiter who was telling me, you're fit for the role. And I was busy telling them, no, I'm not fit for the role. So most of the conversation is happening up in our heads. And so one of the big conversation in tech space is imposter syndrome. And sometimes you think it only affects women until you walk in a big space like Amazon and you realize it's everyone. It's all of us. Everyone walks through that door, just feels, the first few days you feel like, I don't belong here. No way. I passed that interview, and no way I am the right fit for the job. And so that conversation stays with you. And as a woman, you could actually chicken out at some point and just decide, you know what, I can't do this. This is not my space. I think this is for other people. But who said it's for other people? Who said it's not for you? And so one of the things I've realized over time is just first beating the conversation in my head. Me reminding myself that if I've been invited to the table, I do belong there. And so I will comfortably sit there, and I will not sit there and tell myself, oh, I've only been invited because I'm a woman. No, I will sit there. I've been invited because I have something I'm putting to the table. So first, I'm putting myself out there because I have strengths, I have capabilities that I'm bringing to the table, and then I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. So I show up first as me, as a human being, with my abilities and my strengths and everything that I bring to the table. And then at some point, if something comes up, I'm like, yeah, you see, from a woman's perspective. Yeah, then we will bring the woman to the table. But first, I am me, I'm qualified, I've been invited to this table, I belong here. So just like everyone else who's here, I also belong here. And so that has helped me conquer most of those conversations. But of course, sometimes it creeps up on you. You don't always, I don't think you always deal with it eventually, but yeah, it creeps up on you. Sometimes you're there and you're thinking, I'm in the wrong room. I'm totally in the wrong room. But I need to remind myself, oh wait, where did this start? I interviewed. I was asked to do. Someone thinks I'm good for this, so let's go do this. Yeah, and so just waking up and beating those challenges, those conversations in our heads, I think that's a bigger part of just dealing with those challenges. And you'll realize no one is closing that door. And there's no door that is written, unless those, those funny shops where it's written, we are looking for someone to fill this role, and specifically men. In most of the places, no one is saying specifically men. So that door is open. You just need to have the courage to walk through. But then come in and apply your strengths, apply what you're good at. And I like that Mercy has mentioned she comes from the village. I come from the village as well. Let me tell you.
Doing their first podcast.
It is. So just I go back to my mother's home and I look at where I'm coming from, I'm thinking, it's very hard to succeed coming from this environment. Because one, there's no even, internet is still a problem. Because I think where we stay there's basically no access to internet. So yeah, I've tried to do something so that I get to access internet when I go home. But when I get there, I'm completely offline. That's how bad it is. When I want to switch off, that's where I go. And because I know there'll be no temptation to open my laptop or open my phone. Yeah. But then one of the things I've realized is that villager, it's not written on my face. When I'm walking out here, who knows I come from the village? Unless I tell you, you don't know I came from the village. So that tag.
Nothing wrong with coming from the village.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing places to learn hard life lessons.
Yes, but we take that and it holds us back. And in every door you walk through, you're thinking, me, coming from Kitale, what can I add? What value can I add? Who said you can't add value? We are unique individuals, and when we are put in those spaces, we can make a lot of difference. So instead of walking around with a tag that, because I come from this place, I'm not really qualified for it. No, what have you learned over the years? What skills have you acquired over the years? What strengths do you bring to the table? Apply those ones. Every space you show up, apply yourself. One of the things that I've seen that are quite limiting, and I'm sorry to put this one out there because it's very controversial, is sometimes you show up and you want to be served privilege because you're a woman. I think that's self-limiting, if you ask me. And it in a way works against you. If you show up and the way you showed up, you're asking for privilege because you're a woman, you're limiting yourself, you're holding yourself back. You're telling people, treat me special because I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. I think that's wrong. If you ask me, I think that's a wrong way to approach it. When you show up in a space, show up as a human being with capabilities and strengths and very unique abilities. Show up as you. Don't show up with a woman tag first, because you're literally looking for special treatment because I'm a woman. And you'll notice most of the time, people don't notice you're a woman. When you show up the way you show up as an individual with capabilities and your strengths, and you put them out there, people almost forget that you're a woman. I mean, it would come up, but they wouldn't treat you with that special, let me put it, special privilege because, she said she's a woman, so let's treat her. No. And sometimes I think we put ourselves out there, and it limits the doors we can walk through. So probably in a space where we still don't have a lot of representation, I think we need to start also showing up differently, just as us, just as women. Beat the conversations in your head, show up in those spaces. Let someone else tell you, okay, yeah, Faith, I think here you overshot yourself. This is probably not the space for you. Maybe next time I'm like, yeah. Let me go look for those skills. I'll come back. Yeah.
Amazing. I love this podcast. When it comes to balancing a demanding leadership role with personal life, how do you manage this balance? And what advice do you have for women striving to do the same? I know we were having the conversation earlier and you were saying we have to drop the mentality of, you can do it all as a female or as a woman. And guilty as charged. I had to drop it at 2021 and you said at 2020. What was your moment of realization, Mercy, that you cannot do it all? But also just touch a little bit on that, on the balance, especially the work-life balance as a woman.
Okay. That's a big one. And I think it's one of the ones that I would say is one of the biggest challenges women face in the workplace, especially once you make a decision to be a mother, for example. Because then now it stops being about just you. There is someone else there and you're the food. You're moving around with the food that the baby needs. You are probably required to work long hours or have to put in time, in meetings and whatnot and do this. Again, I think drawing insights from, places I've worked, I've really been privileged, to be honest. When I think about places I've worked, I've had the privilege of having very supportive organizations, and I would encourage those who are working in leadership positions or have the positions of decision making in organizations that they work for, whether you're running a startup, whether you're in a corporate that is bigger, and so on and so forth, to think about how you're making space for women to be able to be comfortable to work, especially when they're young moms, because it is really a lot that they're balancing between probably not having had enough sleep through the night, probably dealing with a sick child whom they've had to leave to get to work and have someone else care for. And just striking this balance, and their mental state at that point is torn between the demands you have at work and the pressures of whatever it is that's going on at home. Just creating environments that are allowing for women to be women is really important, because I think we are saying here, and I agree with the points around you show up at the workplace as a human, but you can't take away the fact that you're also a woman. And I think bringing all of that, it's beautiful in itself that you're already in you as a one individual, you have that kind of diversity to be able to be many things in one thing, in a role, that you can play many roles within one body. Like you can be a mom and you can still be a good employee, and do good jobs, or a good manager and so on. So I think having a supportive environment for me has been like a really, really critical pillar in making it possible for me to be able to thrive in the space and to even grow. And that has happened both by the organizations themselves making that space convenient for me to be able to go and pump milk and put it away in a fridge that is, will make sure that the milk gets to my child and it's still fresh and it's good. Being able to bring my child to work, there's instances where we've been able to do that. We still do that even now in organizations. We can do that. Having the flexibility in terms of the hours of work that you can be able to leave when you have a very young child earlier than you typically would, to go and care for your child. After all, you're bringing up the next generation of workforce, so it's important that there's support for that as well. So having a supportive environment in the workplace is really key. But also having a very supportive, network of people in your life socially is something else that I found to be extremely helpful. I'll say that in Kenya, for example, and in Africa, majority of African places, we have, the access to nannies and people who can actually come and, step in and help us with taking care of our children. It's not always the case in the West, where you find people have to actually, either one of you as partners, if you're a couple, one of you has to stay home while the baby is young, to actually literally stay home to watch the child, because childcare is so expensive, or have to take the baby when they're too young to a daycare and so on and so forth. We don't have that so much here. We have access to either family members or even family being very close, or nannies that we can get access to that can help to do that. It's to find that support group for yourself, dependable people that understand the demands of your work and can help you with managing some of those aspects. You're after all, you're human. It's hard to be able to say that you can put 8 hours or more at work and still come and do the same at home. You'd be exhausted. So I think just striking that balance. But also for me, one of the other things I found more and more, especially as I'm growing older, that I'm ruthlessly prioritizing is self-care for myself. Yes. Away from all of that noise, it's a lot. Because even with that supportive network, you're still mom. So at the end of the day, I'll get home and I'll have my 3 children simultaneously coming with their different opinions, because like I said, they're preteens and now one teen coming with their different views. They want to fill me in about their day. They have questions about school. They have things they want to check in with me. I want to lean in and be there and participate. But at the same time, it can be a lot. And so over time, you feel like it's overwhelming. So finding spaces or pockets for your own replenishment of energy, of mental state and everything to just feel better. Like I like to take walks. It's my... No one fights with my walks. I just tell them I'm just going to take a walk. No one is interested in a walk. They'll just be like, oh, that's boring. And for me, I'm like, yes, bliss. Off I go. And I will walk for 30 minutes or whatever. And in those moments, I'm listening to a podcast. Like I said, I listen to them. I don't speak in them. This is the first. I'll listen to a podcast that I would love to have listened to. I will listen to music. I love music. I'll listen to music. By the time I'm coming back home, I have energy for all of you to bring all of the stories you want to tell me. I love massages. Every so often, when I can, I'll get a massage. I'll go and have that. But just carving out your spaces, what is it that you need to do, that you enjoy, that gives you like space to breathe and just to care for yourself. And I think that's really, really important. So for me, I'm more and more leaning into those things of prioritizing that and not feeling guilty about it. Because I think also a lot of moms feel bad that they are leaving the house to go to the salon. It's your hair. You need to also look well put together. You can't look like now because you became a mother. I'm not in a bad way, but you just need to continue to operate. And if you have support systems at work, you should be able to carve out time for things like that. And that is what, for me, works. Yeah.
Oh, very well said, Mercy.
Thank you.
I think I'm a big advocate of... We are not super people. We are not super women. And I think we need to drop that tag. I think we've carried it for so long, and we've always felt that if we don't do certain things, we are failing. I think we need to realize you're only one person, as Mercy has put it. You're one human being in that one body. You can do everything. So start empowering the networks around you, the people around you. And for me, that includes your house help. I think we are privileged that we live in an environment where we can get support, we can get affordable help. Start empowering that person. If you need to pay a little bit extra to just get them to do a little bit extra for you, please do. Because also remember, as you empower them, you're also empowering her to support the people around her. Because when you support her, she also gets to support someone else. And so you've built this network of a whole economy running out of you. And a conversation I was having with a friend of mine, and I remember she was, I think, she was on a panel, and she spoke about supporting the women who support you to sit in the spaces you sit in. Start understanding who are those other women you need to support so that they can support you to sit where you're sitting, because we cannot do everything. And I don't think my children will disown me for being their mother just because I didn't cook one day, or, I don't think that would happen. I doubt that would happen. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But yeah, just remembering, I can actually teach someone else how to do some of these things so that I don't feel the guilt that, I wasn't there, I wasn't present, I didn't cook for them. And then that allows me to take time off for myself, and go and just have a way to rejuvenate, to replenish that energy. Then when you show up in your A game. Show up 100% where you're showing up. If you know you're not going to show up 100%, then don't show up. Because what's the point of you showing up and applying 50% of yourself? Go get some rest. And again, as Mercy says, I've also had the privilege of working in organizations that have been very supportive. When I was a young mother, I remember the company I was working for, that's when they were just introducing a mother's room in the organization. And I was among the people who were privileged to start using it. And that helped a lot. Then I was able to come to work and be able to express milk and put it away for my kids. When I go home in the evening, at least it's still fresh for them. And yeah, if we are sitting in leadership positions, I think it will be a good way to just make sure how are you supporting those young mothers. But then ask for help. You're not superwoman. You can do it all. Learn to ask for help. Your partner, learn to ask for that help. Trust me, they still would do a good job even if you're not there. Yeah, I was just telling you the other day, I one of my sons was unwell, and I really needed to go to work because I had something that had been scheduled for that day and I couldn't miss. And so I just requested a friend of mine to show up and take my child to hospital. And he understood. He told me, you know what? I get it. I know where you work. I know how this day looks like. Go to work. He went. He took care of my child in hospital, queued. You know how Nairobi hospital he's queued in all those spaces, and told me, when you finish work, go home. And I went home, and they came and found me home. And I thought, it's actually okay for me to ask for help. I have a friend of mine during COVID. I think one of the things I realized, and COVID, that 2020 year was a very tough year for most of us. You know, I keep saying, I don't think I ever want to have my children and my work in the same space. Not in a bad way, but I lose myself in it because I want to be present for work. It's high demanding. And then I want to be present for my children. And there are 3, so it's high demanding as well. So those 2 things cannot coexist in the same space. So I need to just be in one at a time. And so during COVID, that work from home really messed up. At least with me, it really messed up with me. And so one of the things a friend of mine used to do, she would come, she's very good with children. She would come and tell me, okay, today I want to go hang out with the kids. And she would take my kids and just go the whole day. And that gave me time to work. And then it gave me time to sleep. Gave me time to just sit with myself. Gave me time to go to the salon. And so I started realizing it's really important. Start building that network of people around you. As you show up for them, they also show up for you. So it's okay to ask for help. I think that's the one thing. We've carried this tag for so long of superwoman. I really don't like that word. And I know it's one of the ones that we use a lot, but I don't like it because it makes you like you have extra powers. No, you don't. You're one person, you can do everything. Ask for help. Yeah.
Amazing. It's interesting that you both have 3 and they just have 1. It's driving me insane.
You should be encouraged.
Yes.
It just means that it can be done.
It can be done,
yeah.
for sure. And then finally, as we come to the close of the podcast, the future of women in tech. How do you see the role of women in tech evolving, especially in Africa? And what opportunities or challenges do you foresee for the next generation? I know we touched a little bit on AI, machine learning, data science as just some of the, topics or opportunities or trends to watch out for. So maybe just touch a little bit on that as we come to a close.
I think that AI machine learning space is really huge. There is a lot of opportunity for women to get in there and find ways to innovate using AI to solve for problems or issues that they're seeing within society and the spaces in which they are in. Because what AI is simply helping you do is to basically just be more efficient, to make decisions or to turn around outcomes that you're looking for. Once you have data, how do you use that data to come up with solutions that will solve for problems that you're trying to solve for? Think about simple things like, what example can I give of how? Let me give you an example of a very simple thing. There's somebody who is providing a lot of advice to women about, say, reproductive health, for instance, an organization that I'm aware of. Actually, even think about an organization like Jacaranda Health, using AI solutions that are coded off of large language models that META has built, for instance, to create solutions in the health space. And it is really advancing a lot of what is needed in solving for health challenges that are within the community. Being able to put across solutions using AI and machine learning tools is really key. And now you have access to, like I said, lots of courses and things that can help you to ramp up on how can you do that. And I think just getting curious and learning how to do it and getting into that space is one. But also there is a lot of social issues that you can solve for using tech solutions. I tell people, I don't know any other awakening anyone needs when you think about the COVID season, that we just came from, that was destabilizing for everyone across the world. We were shut out from the world in terms of we're away from each other. We were, we had, what are we calling it? Like physical distancing that was mandated by government. For example, we had to stay in homes and whatnot, couldn't travel, and work had to continue. we saw a lot of women, and I'm talking about as a research that we conducted at some time back with World Bank during that time after the COVID season ended, where we saw a lot of women leverage the use of social media, for example, to start new businesses altogether. Because also many companies closed during that time. There wasn't business happening because obviously the world was like it had shut down, and you had a lot of people just back home without any jobs. Many people leveraged, for example, using social media platforms to start their own little hustle and went very far. And today they are running big businesses, making money from their comfort of their homes. And they've realized they didn't need to continue going back to look for a job. And I think those spaces remain available. I tell people, if you look at social media, and I'm talking about, for example, meta platforms like Instagram, Facebook, you have tons of resources that are free, that are within those platforms. If you're not familiar with how to get around them, go to www.meta.com, look for example, digital skills learning, for example, tools that are available that Meta can offer you, or even other organizations. Google has them, everyone has tons of resources that can teach you how to get around placing, for example, digital marketing, doing digital marketing skills. How do I place an ad on Instagram? How do I advertise this and that, my skills, I'm good at this, and so on and so forth. So people traditionally were used to going into a shop, brick and mortar, sort of like you come into a building like this to be able to buy something. Now, you could be sitting in Mombasa and you're selling to customers who are in Nairobi or anywhere else across the country, even across the border, somewhere else. And that is being enabled by tech. And I think women still have a lot of opportunities to be able to tap into those spaces. So my view would be, again, there's some work on your part to do as a listener to figure out, how do I get into some of this? How do I get to know how to do these things? Like I said, get into, for example, if you look up Facebook Blueprint, which is free, you can look up online, you'll see lots of courses that can teach you about how to navigate platforms that Meta offers. How do you combine, say, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, to advance whatever interests you have? How do you ramp up as a digital marketer online? How do you create content? Now we are monetizing in Kenya. How do you create content that you can monetize? How do you make it attractive? How do you bring followers to your page if you're looking to do things like that, if you're in entertainment or whatever space you're in? So I would say women, I think there's never been a better time than now. Because if you think about back in the day, it's always been like sort of like a man's world where you waited to get permission to even go to school. Women were last to be prioritized by parents, girls basically, to go to school. To be the boys would go. If there was struggle with raising fees, the girl would stay home, because after all, they would be married off to go to a family, and why invest in them? And now, nothing stops you. Even if you've been told you can't go to school, you could be sitting home and all you have is a phone, and you're still getting educated. And I think just leveraging those opportunities, and women who already have had the privilege of having that access. And for me, I think that is one of the things that I'm most passionate about. When I think about digital gaps, and I keep talking about those everywhere I go, how do I help, me in my capacity as Mercy, to bridge those digital gaps a step at a time? I do it in the world of policy by advocating for policies that are allowing people to have access to internet. How can we ensure that the environment is ripe, for example, for investors who want to come in and put money in rolling out fiber, can be able to do that because we don't have hindrances around taxation, around whatnot. Those are public policy challenges that I have to deal with every day, for example. But then there is many other ways in which you can lean into those spaces. It could be, like I was saying earlier, you're more versed in using a phone. Your cousin isn't. They're sitting in the village, and you have just gifted them the old one you had because you've upgraded your smartphone. Teach them one or two things about how they can get around that phone. That helps them to become less digitally illiterate and become better at how they can do this. And so on and so forth. So paying it forward, making sure that we are leaning into each other as community to support each other. Those mentorship opportunities, grab yourself someone, whoever you think in your community or in your sphere is better versed than you, to help you to ramp up is really good is important to do. But also I think to challenge, I think the bigger scale, without the environment being created to be able to allow for more people to be able to do it simultaneously, it is harder. And so I would suggest that there's also a big role to be played by government, by organizations that are already privileged to lean into those projects. So you find many companies, I've worked, for example, for Safaricom, who have lots of projects around helping communities to get access to things, or to support girls to get digital skills, and so on and so forth. Having more organizations doing that means there'll be less people who are struggling with digital gaps and so on. So that helps more people ramp up in the tech space, and especially women. So being intentional also, like for corporates, for organizations, even when you're a startup, and then making room when you're hiring to more women, you're a better organization. Not to say that women are better than men. I'm just saying when you have a more diverse staff base, you will get better perspectives that are richer and that will also put out outcomes that are more diverse and well thought through, because it's not just one-minded. Because women, men sometimes tend to think differently because of how we're built. It would help to have diversity even in how you're representing people on your organization. So allowing more intentional hiring where you're thinking about those numbers. If you're starting to see meetings where you have 10 men and 1 woman, ask, what is we are doing wrong at this organization? Do we need to change how we are hiring? If it's a meeting and you have other women, you have women, maybe staff who are outside, how do you incorporate them in that boardroom? Are you maybe having more men in leadership positions? How do you make sure that you're also supporting the other gender to also get into those positions and so on and so forth? So there's a lot to be done, but it is already being done by many. It's just to continue encouraging that happens and creating those spaces and being aware of it and just being intentional about solving for it. Yeah.
Amazing.
I like that. So yeah, I think I would like to speak from an Amazon perspective and what we've done so far. I see we now have, the way we were doing certifications on solutions architect and all that. Now we have foundation courses on AI and machine learning, and this is to just get more women in these spaces. We are already using these LLMs. And the models have been built by someone, right? The data has been collected by someone. And so one of the challenges that we have, I think, as a continent and as a country and as women, is to make sure that we are sitting in spaces where this data is being collected. And one of the, I think there's probably a series, I think it's a docuseries on Netflix about this lady called Joy. And how she just, out of curiosity, figured out there's, I think, a system that was being used that was not recognizing women of color. And she went ahead and she's created a whole ecosystem out of that. And so it's a challenge for us as well. Much as there are language models that have already been built, I think we can do a little bit more. And so these opportunities are available out here. Like, do we know who's collecting the data and who's influencing the models that we are using? Who's influencing those models? What data is sitting behind that? And so this is ripe space for us as a generation, let me put it like that, to start influencing this. Yeah, and as women especially, if we want to see the output coming out of those models not really favoring, but recognizing that women are different, then we need to be part of the conversation. Are we putting in the right data when the models are being built, when they are being trained? Are we available? Are we sitting on that table? And that could look like it's very far, but we have challenges that we experience that other continents are not experiencing. So why don't we start there? Start building stuff based on our Africa problems. Like, what are just little things here and there, some social issues that could be resolved if we were sitting on the table and participating in building some of those AI tools. And as Mercy says, there's so many free courses out here on AI and machine learning, and it's available to anyone. One of the things I try to do, and we can't, if it's one person, we can't do this, but if it's most of us doing, then it makes a lot of difference, is make sure that if there are available opportunities, especially for skilling, I try and make sure they are sitting out here for everyone. So I share most of them on my LinkedIn profile. And I see a lot of opportunities, or sometimes, basically opportunities coming up saying, we are waiting, we are looking for girls who want to do certifications in this. You get 50% shaved off for that course. And as you do that course, you realize you'll do this one with 50%, you'll probably look at another one and do another one 50%. And over time, what you've done is actually build skills. And that's basically how we get to grow. Some of these opportunities are out here. They may not be available to you, but if you just take an extra step looking for them in some of these environments, you could actually find them. And I see a lot of information on Amazon pages. It would be nice for young people who want to continue learning and just get those certifications. Go out there, find out. The opportunities here and there, you'll get 50% here, or sometimes it's free. You get mentors. I have Right now I'm recruiting, and I've seen people of different nationalities reaching out to me and telling me, I am mentoring a young man or a young lady in Kenya. Would you consider hiring them? And I keep wondering, how did these guys get to mentor someone people I don't even know, but because we work with them, I'm seeing them mentoring people in Kenya. And I think these are opportunities out there. You can be mentored by someone else sitting in a different country. Take those opportunities, but you need to first take the step of going out there and finding out some of these big tech companies. The opportunities are sitting out here for us. I like the idea of diversity, especially in AI and machine learning space, and just because of what we bring to the table as women, our thought process is very different. And so if we also want to make a difference, we need to start getting into those spaces. The diversity and that bias, sometimes you're looking for something and you can just tell whoever created this solution is definitely a man. You have an opportunity to actually make a difference. So go out there, challenge yourself, learn AI, learn machine learning. It's the next frontier. It's here. It's with us. You could decide it's gonna take my job, or you could decide it's a tool I want to learn and see how do I solve my day-to-day problems with these tools. So I think there's also just a little bit more that we can do. Go out there and find out what other resources are out there for me.
Thank you both for such an insightful and inspiring conversation. No one can tell that you've never done podcasts before. It's clear that the future of tech is bright, and with leaders like you, we're excited to see how women will continue to shape the industry and make a lasting impact. So please join us for the full panel conversation on the 5th of September from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at KOFISI Square. Please email memberevents@kofisi.africa or ask your respective CRMs, so that's your center managers, or check out on our socials. Thank you very much.